And we're back for another episode of the Department Podcast with Justin Valentovic, Stephen Clark, and Joe Paolantonio. And we're here to preview the 2020 World Series. And I can't believe I'm saying that because surprisingly, baseball actually made it to the end. You know, early in the season when the Marlins got taken out, the Cardinals got taken out, and, you know, the potential outbreaks were popping up everywhere and whenever, you know, the season was in jeopardy. But credit to the MLB, they somehow pulled it off. You know, by going to two semi-bubbles, you know, maybe too soon, too late type of mentality for them, which they should have done in the beginning, but that's here nor there. But the stage is set. The Tampa Bay Rays are taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. We finally got our matchup, and here we are.
Yeah.
Well, I was right. I mean, this is the matchup that I predicted. We have, and they good for them. They expanded the playoffs. They did everything they could do. But at the end of the day, the two best teams in both leagues are in the World Series, and this is great for baseball because, I mean, you're going to get great offense. You're going to get a lot of home runs in this series, which is awesome. And I mean, you're going to get some of the best pitching we're going to see. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Joe said it best though. The right teams won, the best teams won. Dodgers lived up to the hype. We knew all the hype going into this season about the Dodgers with the whole Mookie Betts signing and all that stuff. They kept a lot of their players. They just performed really well overall all season, and it's showing right now. And like Joe said too, a lot of home runs coming up. The pitching for the Rays is insane against the bats of the Dodgers. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I'm very excited for this.
Like Joe and I kind of joked about it a little bit, but it's like, it's almost like the Rays were prepared for like this type of scenario. Like they almost saw not COVID coming, but like they were prepared to have a series. Like if you look at the ALCS, you know, 7 straight days of 7 straight games, like they were built for that. And this playoff scenario favored them. You know, the Dodgers at the same time, you know, they had to scramble for pitching a little bit more. Like Dustin May rolled out in Game 7 yesterday. Very questionable start, but you know, that's what they rolled with. But the Rays, you know, really benefited probably the most out of any team. Now, not trying to take anything away from them, but that's just how they're built. And it's just so funny, you know, looking at the complete spectrum end of each spectrum. The Rays, you know, one of the cheapest payrolls in baseball. The Dodgers, the biggest payroll in baseball. And here they both are ready to play in the World Series. And also at the same time, you know, with the expanded playoffs, you know, you had the Astros who were under 500 who almost got in. You know, there were other teams who, if they got in, people would consider the World Series illegitimate. At least now with this matchup, it's legit. You know, yeah, you're playing in front of minimal fans. The season was much shorter. The playoffs were a little bit different, but at the end of the day, the two best teams are here and it's legit.
Absolutely. And I think there's, I mean, you could look at the payrolls of these two teams and you would think that they were completely on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as how they built their team. But they're not so different after all. Of course, the Dodgers have almost unlimited resources and the Rays strictly stick to their budget. But there's been so many smart trades and under the radar moves to build the Los Angeles Dodgers that cannot go understated. They did not just buy this team. Max Muncy was a guy they found out of absolutely nowhere. They just discovered him. They brought him in, and he was fantastic. Will Smith, that's all scouting. They picked him up and then got him right through the system, a homegrown talent. I mean, a lot of these Dodgers players are homegrown talents. This is a core that they built. Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw. I mean, these are their own guys.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, people would always rag on the Yankees for buying a championship. In 2009, they pretty much bought. The thing with the Dodgers is, like you said, Joe, Bellinger, Seager, Smith, you know, Jansen, Bueller, Kershaw, they're all homegrown. They're just paid a lot of money because they want to keep them around. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And also, like Justin Turner, he was a cast-off as well. He was a Met. He was an Oriole. He, you know, ended up there, and he's been a cornerstone of what could have been a dynasty with the Dodgers if they've, you know, finally won a championship or won the ones they were in recent years. But he's been a consistent player, and he's been there for forever.
Yeah, the Mets are very similar to the Jets in that way. Like when they're
when someone
players,
leaves,
they do phenomenal, and I can't be mad as a Mets fan, whether it's Justin Turner, Travis d'Arnaud, even Daniel Murphy at sometimes. It's just it's refreshing to see these players' careers not get ruined by a crappy organization in the Mets. But it's just I'm happy for them. Like even with like the Jets, Robbie Anderson's doing really well this year, and it's refreshing to see them not have no career. So good for them doing all that stuff, and congrats to Justin Turner again. Honestly, he's proved he's top tier. He's the man.
And the Dodgers too. They're getting to, the 90s Bills level, though, where they're getting the World Series and losing every year. And the Rays, it's not a cakewalk either. If it was the Astros on the flip side, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. And, the storylines with the whole cheating scandal back then would have been phenomenal to see. But this is a very formidable opponent for LA. Like, it's not the cakewalk, it could have been. But on the flip side, the Rays, they don't have the flashy names that the Dodgers do. They don't have Bellinger. They don't have Betts. They have Hunter Renfroe and G-Man Choi and Austin Meadows. That's their crew. But they have the capability of putting up runs just as well.
The Rays, the problem with the Rays, it's that they beat great competition in the playoffs, and the pitching has been outstanding as advertised. But outside of Randy Arozarena, nobody has been a good consistent bat. Brandon Lau is essentially an automatic out at this point. I don't think that he's going to get any playing time, and he was their best hitter in the regular season.
That's the thing, and he was
I don't see him even playing in the World Series.
And people had him as like a front runner for AL MVP.
Yeah, no, he's been a disaster, and I mean, like everyone else has kind of had moments.
Like Mike Zunino has been really carrying the load outside of Arozarena.
It's really Arozarena's team at this point. I mean, Margot, some clutch hits. Zunino has been absolutely clutch. Even Kiermaier has gotten in on the action. Very Jackie Bradley Jr. Like how it's just in the playoffs all of a sudden, not just an offensive liability. But if they're going to win games, they're going to have to win 4-3 and 3-2. And I mean, it's possible. The Dodgers were not a juggernaut outside of really Game 3. They weren't,
all the games have been close.
That many runs. I mean, this is winnable for the Rays. They do also have the benefit of they're not 7 games in a row this time. They're doing 2, 3, 2, so there will be 2 days off. That's going to help.
Which is humane.
We might yes, it's respectable.
Yeah.
We might see Tyler Glasnow be some sort of like rubber arm. I don't know how they're going to use him. I think he'll start probably Game 2, and then we'll work it from there. But I don't know how they're going to use him, which is interesting. But I think the Dodgers have the advantage now since they have 2 days off to reset, and you can get Walker Buehler pitching 3 times in the series.
Yeah.
And something I want to touch on too is, Joe, you hinted at it a little bit, but the outfielders for this series on both sides, they are probably 2 of the best defensive outfields in baseball. We saw Mookie Betts basically rob a home run, in 3 games this past NLCS, and the Rays on the flip side, Margot Kiermaier, they can cover so much ground out there. Like we're going to see web gems almost every night.
It's going to be the 2 best defensive center fielders, Bellinger and Kevin Kiermaier, in my humble opinion. 2 of the best right fielders in Manu Margot and Mookie Betts. I mean, you go, in like on the infield. I mean, Willie Thomas and Seager both can field. I mean, they're both really, really good out there. And I mean, what I'm looking forward to is the Mike Zunino, Will Smith catcher comparison, because I mean, both of those guys, solid behind the plate, but at the dish, I really think this game's going to come down to like one of the catchers having a big hit.
And it's funny because that's what, like Mike Zunino, when he was drafted way back in like the Stone Age, he was supposed to be like, the Mike Piazza of this generation. He kind of fizzled out, didn't show that. But this series, like he's showing, the power numbers he originally was scouted for, and he's come up with big hits. So he could very well be an X factor for this team.
My question mark for the Rays is going to be, as I said before, where the offense is going to come from. For the Dodgers, it's going to be what's happening with the back end of the bullpen. I mean, they kind of avoided it. Like it was not, like it wasn't lockdown, but like Trinan is been kind of a problem for them. Dustin May, I guess they're gonna have him start and not be at the back end. So there's gonna have to be some question marks. Kenley Jansen is still a question mark. Joe Kelly is still a question mark.
But then at the same time, like they've been using, May and Julio Urias as like the swing men when they could be starters as well.
Yeah,
And we saw yesterday they were warming up Kershaw as like an emergency situation also. So it's like if they go there, I don't really trust playoff Kershaw coming out of the pen. Like he's not Bumgarner.
I know. I want May to be that guy. I do not want Dustin May to be starting playoff games. I think he's much better out of the bullpen at this point in his career. I mean, it does kind of remind me of an early Madison Bumgarner, a young starter who comes out of the bullpen. Kershaw needs to start. Again, Kershaw, we keep saying it. This has got to be the time when he buckles down and has the start that makes him look like the best pitcher of our generation, because that's what he is.
Yeah, he has to show something. Like everyone's talked about us, like famous, like ESPN, Sports and all that stuff. They talk about how Kershaw can't get it done in the big games and all that stuff, and how he's not a playoff pitcher. This is his time right here, right now, to prove to everybody that he is that guy. He's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. If he could get it done and bring another championship back to LA,
he's baseball Peyton Manning.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
Exactly. Like literally 100%. Like I'd love making comparisons to this in football and all that stuff. That's exactly how it is.
Because until Peyton got over the hump in 06, past the Patriots and won a Super Bowl, he was a great regular season quarterback, but he was notorious for choking in the playoffs. And Kershaw has had more championship opportunities to prove that he's, not basically a choke artist. This is his, third World Series, fourth World Series?
I mean, the pressure in this series is all on the Dodgers. I think we can agree on that.
Well, also helps with Dave Roberts saying this is our year.
I mean, there's no pressure like Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, Randy Arozarena. Like, I mean, there's no pressure on those guys right now. They beat the Yankees. They beat the Astros. Yeah. They're not even supposed to be here. Charlie Morton already has a World Series ring, and he's probably the veteran leader on that team. Kenley Jansen, absolutely, there's pressure on him. I mean, we're talking about he has lockdown as a closer. We're talking about a guy who's talking about Ken Kimbrell or Aroldis Chapman as far as, best reliever of this era. Cody Bellinger, Mookie Betts, both superstar players have not really done it that much in the postseason, specifically Bellinger. But at some point, they're going to have to prove they can do it on the big stage.
Well, I think for the Dodgers especially, Mookie has, the most pressure to produce because he's been to the World Series. He's won it with the Red Sox. He was that piece that came over and he got them to the World Series, and he's made, great plays in right field. If he comes in here and kind of lays an egg, they still have him for, 13 more years, I think, or whatever that contract was. But at the same time, he was the impact player they wanted to get them to the World Series. He guaranteed them that. He was a main reason they came back from 3-1 on the Braves, as we're being honest. He saved so many runs. Joe, I'm sure you have so many, nerd stats for his defensive run save that, you could bust out of how, much of an impact he had. But it's really on him to get the Dodgers over the hump. And if he does, we could seriously talk about his legacy of being one of the best ever, for him to come in and get a team that was a consistent World Series appearance team and get them that title. So really for Mookie, he has it all riding on his shoulders.
No, yeah, he's a perennial leader in defensive runs saved. His UZR is off the charts. He puts up more defensive WAR than anyone else in right field. Aaron Judge is close for those people following at home. But
where's he now?
Yikes.
Sitting at home with us.
With us. He's hanging out playing some golf, playing with the boys.
Golf. We're going to see fans. So the World Series in a bubble with fans. Bizarre. We're going to see this disgusting Globe Life field with terrible lighting.
Thankfully, it hasn't been as dark in the NLCS as it was earlier in that series. Like, it got bright. Like, the roof was open the whole time. So I don't know what that was. Just Fox's cameras, I think, at that point.
It could have been.
When the Padres were there, it was a disaster. Absolutely terrible. This is Clayton Kershaw's series.
Yeah.
I think the Dodgers are going to win. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. It's their time. This is not This is not the 2017 Astros, and this is not the 2018 Red Sox. This is the weakest World Series opponent out of the three that they have faced. It's time. It's time.
So with that being said, Joe, how many games for the Dodgers then? Because that's your opinion. That's your pick. Dodgers in how many games? Dodgers in 5. Joe, what about Clark? What about you? What's your pick?
Before I say my pick, this series right here, we're seeing LA in a championship game. It reminds me a lot of the last time we saw an LA team in a championship game, which was only a couple weeks ago. It's the Lakers. It was the Lakers and the Heat. You have the powerhouse in the Lakers and a team that's good, but not really supposed to be there in the Heat, which is also the Rays in a way. But I picked the Heat in that one because they were the underdog and my team, but I am not sticking with the underdog in this one. I'm going with the Dodgers. Give me the Dodgers in give me 7. Dodgers in 7.
Ooh.
Give me 7. I think the Rays pull some off. Maybe early in the series they pull some off, but give me 7. Dodgers in 7.
The one thing that's most important in playoff baseball is pitching.
Yes.
And we saw it, both teams have pitching. The Dodgers had to scramble it more than the Rays. So with that being said, I'm going with Tampa Bay in 6 because of their pitching depth.
Wow.
And with that being said, Joe, who's your World Series MVP?
Wow. It's a slam dunk pick. It's going to be Clayton Kershaw. I think he's the naysayers out 5 games. They'll give him a start in game 2. He's going to shove. He'll come out of the bullpen in game 5 and be on the mound when they win the World Series.
I'm going to go Belly. I'm going Belly. I think he just performs really well overall. He's just a dude. He's literally the dude. Like he's just gonna perform to his peak. He's gonna carry this team to a championship. I'm going Bellinger, man.
I'm gonna go with Austin Meadows. He's been a little quiet, overshadowed by Randy Arozarena. Hasn't really played too much. But I think when we get the right-handed matchup, because quite frankly, the Dodgers have a lot of right-handed matchup, and Kevin Cash loves to, play the matchup game. So I'm going with Austin Meadows.
Wow. I like how we're all different there, and Joe and I are similar to our World Series picks. And Justin, of course, the outsider, which is probably going to win somehow again.
Well, credit for you, Clark. You in the ALCS, you picked the right score of the game, and Joe, you picked the right matchup way back when.
Yeah.
Glasnow and Meadows co-MVP. Shove it to the Pirates.
The trade that just keeps on giving. Oh boy! Any last closing thoughts on the World Series or the postseason of baseball so far? Anything you want to get off your chest?
I just don't think the Rays are going to score a lot of runs. I'm really impressed by the Astros, but
yeah, I wanted to touch on that. Like, I'm glad they made it this far, but I'm glad they didn't go to the championship as well, just because it proved to a lot of the haters that, hey, what the hell was that?
Whose dog was that? Was that yours or that was Joe?
That's me.
It definitely wasn't mine.
My dog heard that through my earphone somehow because mine just came to my door right here and peeked in.
I know. I saw him walking around before.
Yeah, he was just on my couch back there. He just came in for a second. But anyways, what was I talking about?
The Astros.
Yes. I'm happy they didn't go to the championship, of course, with all the cheating scandal and stuff. But I'm also glad that they proved to a lot of the haters that, hey, we still have a lot of good players and we can still play this game. I know we got caught for cheating in the past. We were wrong on our part. And they did their best to get to the World Series. They got pretty damn far. So good for them, honestly.
Could you imagine if the first time they had to hear it from fans was at a World Series in Texas?
Ooh.
Against the Dodgers? Like that would have been the storylines, and there would have been legitimate fights in the stands, like mid-game.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been like Eagles-Giants game. Like it would have been brutal.
It would have been awesome.
It would have been fun. It would have been entertaining. Yeah, I can't complain about that one.
They could be back soon. Like they could be back very well next year if they get the.
They will.
Right.
I think they will.
I don't know. They're losing Springer. They're losing Justin
gone.
Verlander. Zach Greinke is ancient. It's like this Astros team is on the way down, but they don't really have that many people. They don't have much breathing down their neck. I mean, the A's are going to lose Simeon, and they don't really have that much of a pitching staff to begin with. The Rangers are a joke. The Angels are a joke.
Yeah.
The Mariners are the biggest joke. I mean, the Mariners might be a threat at some point
in like 6 years.
There's no immediate threat to the Astros. They could win 87 games and make the playoffs like they did this year.
Yeah.
I hope Springer's a Met this time next year.
Oh, he very well could be.
He might be.
I think he is
possible.
Too. Yeah.
But we'll talk about Hot Stove after the World Series concludes, which would be in about 10 days or so, give or take, because they start Tuesday. So
Cool.
yeah, that's it for this episode. So Clark, the old outro.
Yeah, you guys know what it is by now. But thank you guys for all listening to the Department Podcast. We had fun talking baseball again. Haven't done that in a while. It's always good to talk baseball with the boys. We have NFL episode coming really, really soon too. So stay tuned for that. We'll break down the week. But then it's kind of taking a little break. Sports are starting to phase out. So just wrestling, baseball, and football for right now. So stay tuned to all that stuff during the week. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And follow us on our social medias on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Department_pod. Like I said, so much stuff planned. So please listen and watch, and we'll see you in the next episode.